Part 103. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 1021. Such a pill is enough for any immortal cultivator to complete the practice of the true soul tribulation. However, there are many kinds of soul treasures. The lowest level is to extract souls by killing lives. The most precious one is to extract soul particles directly from the sea of souls and then refine them. However, anyone who wants to extract soul particles from the sea of souls is an act that damages the void universe. Usually, various dangerous things will come and kill people who do such things. This kind of disaster is called a catastrophe. And any soul treasure that can be cultivated is the sacrifice of countless people, who have been fighting to extract the purest soul particles before they can be successfully refined. The one in Lin Yi's hand is the purest soul treasure. Without any hesitation, he swallowed the soul treasure in one gulp. Then, the mysterious soul power washed over his mind, making his whole body filled with an unimaginable terrifying brilliance. The violent soul fluctuations centered on him and slowly vibrated. The spirituality in his soul was slowly vibrating in the growing soul, and countless soul mysteries appeared in the spirituality. In the blink of an eye, another 10 years passed, and everything in the time cabin was colorless. There was only eternal tranquility and white, which seemed to never change. Lin Yi took a deep breath and slowly woke up from his meditation. At this time, the spirituality of the main body had been covered by 5 traces, densely forming a sophisticated network. The network began to operate, and an eternal nature was rapidly forming. Spiritual energy continued to gush from the process of eternal nature formation, quickly washing Lin Yi's main body. Lin Yi could clearly feel that his body was undergoing fundamental changes. A new eternal nature appeared in his spirituality. This eternal nature and the eternal nature formed by the spirituality of the blue star clone complement each other. These two eternal natures, one emits a thick golden glow, which is very similar to the glow of the ancient gods. One emits a gray glow, which is an eternal nature that has never appeared in this world. Along with the spirituality of the main body condensing the eternal nature, the two spiritualities attracted each other and merged into one in an instant. The two eternal natures were clearly separated, like 2 light wheels, surrounding Lin Yi's spirituality. And in the deepest part of the spirituality, the spiritual wave sphere was quietly rotating. The eternal nature exists in the form of light. Lin Yi carefully observed his 2 eternal natures, and he suddenly observed something. The handprint that he originally condensed on the true destiny seemed to echo the eternal nature condensed by the 5 innate principles. This true destiny handprint was surprisingly one on the seed of the true destiny. At this time, the handprint trace on the seed of the true destiny was actually bright, emitting a light golden light. This scene scared Lin Yi, and he immediately realized the problem in his heart. Could it be that each handprint represents an eternal nature? Thinking of this, Lin Yi's face suddenly changed, which meant that he wanted to deduce a new true destiny. He first had to analyze all the eternal properties contained in the 6 true destinies. This will be an extremely huge project. At this time, his heart moved, and his eyes looked at the mechanical Dao trace universe. At this time, the mechanical Dao trace universe was shrouded by a radiance of boundless true destiny. It floated quietly in Lin Yi's soul. At the same time, Lin Yi's eyes also fell on the time cabin, where the human immortal Dao clone was still staying. The magnificent radiance of true destiny covered the entire cabin, and there was an area full of inheritance items. Lin Yi received countless inheritance items from about hundreds of billions of world groups. Each of these worlds provided him with at least 100,000 inheritance items. The total number added up to trillions, of which he only used about 100 trillion inheritance items to form a complete imaginary Dao trace universe. After realizing the true nature of true destiny, he knew that he had to condense more eternal properties. Only then could it be possible to deduce the infinity of true destiny and at the same time reversely deduce the eternal properties that constitute other true destiny. The inheritance items at the trillion level can condense more than 100 kinds of imaginary Deo trace universes for him, which is equivalent to more than 100 different eternal properties. These eternal properties are not completely unchangeable. The Deo traces inside can be adjusted and modified continuously. When deducing the true destiny in the future, the eternal properties can be changed, which is an extremely important feature. Then the next step is to continuously condense the imaginary Deo trace universe and reverse the eternal properties of other true destinies. This seems to be an extremely vast project and will take a long time. I don't know when it will be completed. Lin Yi sighed slightly. Originally, he thought that if he condensed the imaginary Deo trace universe, he would have the possibility of reverse deducing the true destiny. Now it seems that things are not that simple. It is not so easy to deduce the true destiny with just an imaginary Deo trace universe. Thinking of this, his mind moved, and the eternal properties composed of the imaginary Deo trace universe flashed with a gray light. If you look closely, you will find that this gray light is composed of countless Deo trace information. A wonderful power that is completely different from spiritual energy is flowing out of it in an endless stream. This power and spiritual energy are clearly separated, flowing through every corner of the body. At this moment, the boundless dark clouds in the void gathered above the head of the Wanchai. A terrifying backlash force has swept towards Lin Yi. Lin Yi looked up at the sky, took a step forward, and the next moment, he had appeared in the void. An extremely huge dark cloud enveloped him, and the storm that swept down contained various void forces, which could almost kill any existence. This force blew on his body, but it passed like a breeze and clouds. No power could touch him, and the backlash of the universe consumed almost zero spiritual waves. Even the spiritual waves he naturally generated could not be consumed, and the backlash of the void raged for an hour. It was more than 10 times longer than the backlash of the void encountered by the president. When everything was over, Lin Yi was filled with an eternal brilliance, illuminating the entire void. Countless people's eyes fell on him, and someone in the void city exclaimed, "The second eternal being! Another eternal being was born. Is it time for something to happen? Will there be a third and fourth?" Discussions and discussions continued, and all kinds of powerful people looked at Lin Yi. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 1022. They naturally recognized Lin Yi's identity. With him entering the eternal level, many people have given up the idea of dealing with him. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. In addition, the Lingbo weapon system collapsed, and there was no reason to worry about him. In addition, the Tiangxiandao entered the eternal level, and the 5 and 8 rules could not cause any harm to him at all. Including the 5 and 8 rules, all the power derived from them is invalid to him. And the aura emanating from the other party has also been raised to an astonishing level, which is at least 1,000 times the level of the Tiangxiandao. Yes, with the birth of Lin Yi's eternal nature, the spiritual energy and mysterious energy in the body are self-generated. His control over external energy has risen to a whole new level. As long as he wants, he can raise his own power limit to 10,000 times the level of the Tiangxiandao in a short period of time, which is so powerful that it is unimaginable. He turned around and took a step forward, and the next moment he had torn the void and returned to the Wanchai. Standing in the basement, he stretched out his left and right hands. A ball of spiritual energy emanated from his right hand, which was a pure light blue light. Although the color was similar to the light of the true destiny, there was a clear difference. A gray mysterious energy emanated from his left hand. This energy was incompatible with the void and seemed to repel all the power of the void. At the same time, it was also repelled by the void. This was the power revealed by the eternal nature of imagination, a mysterious energy that had never appeared before. A strange existence imprisoned in the underground maze appeared in front of him, tied up with countless green silk threads. The gray energy turned into a lightsaber under his control, and slashed at the monster in front of him. There was no sound, and everything was smashed to pieces wherever the lightsaber passed. This strange existence was directly cut in half. From the effect alone, it was the same as the effect when spiritual energy controlled energy. The strange monster, starting from the wound, quickly turned into broken ashes, and a wisp of strange essence slowly floated out and was quickly swallowed up by the underground maze. The spiritual energy in Lin Yi's right hand also turned into a green lightsaber under its control. A strange existence continued to appear in front of him, and the spiritual energy sword chopped it down on the head. The spiritual energy sword passed through without causing any damage to the monster, as if it had no entity. Seeing this scene, Lin Yi was thoughtful. Different eternal properties may produce completely different effects of energy. Spiritual energy is just as I guessed. It can be easily integrated into the extensions of the 5 innate rules and control them to become the power in one's own hands. This is not an energy that can be used directly in combat. But imagine that this gray energy composed of Dao traces can be used directly as an offensive force. Each eternal property seems to have a unique derivative energy. This may represent their essence. Combining the essences of these countless forces, what is finally born may be the true destiny. Instantly, Lin Yi felt that he seemed to have touched some essence of the true destiny. It seems to be the product of multiple eternal properties after forming a cycle. Then what is the spiritual wave? The eternal nature of the complex constructs a perfect cycle. Then this cycle produces the spiritual wave. I remember when I first practiced the true destiny, I needed to condense the lotus phantom of the true destiny in my mind every time. Then by constantly concluding hand seals, accumulating spiritual waves bit by bit, and lighting up the lotus hand seal. This process should involve my mind. The power of the mind is originally extremely huge. Even the spiritual power of ordinary people at the spiritual level is extremely huge. At first, I relied entirely on hand seals to light up the true destiny, which took countless time. That also means that I used countless spiritual powers. If I hadn't encountered the weird existence in the end in a short time, I condensed the true destiny solution. I don't know how long it will take to condense the true destiny by myself. Every time I light up a lotus handprint, I have to use all the handprints once. It looks like I have evolved all the handprints in my mind. Does it mean that every spiritual wave condenses all the eternal properties of a whole set of handprints, and condenses the existence of spiritual waves based on spiritual power? The eternal nature can be combined with spiritual power, and the perfect cycle structure of the eternal nature is essentially just a higher level method of using the eternal nature. Thinking of this, Lin Yi suddenly became enlightened, and he seemed to understand the condensation process of the spiritual wave. That is to say, the true destiny is infinite. If you want the spiritual wave to self-generate infinitely forever, what you need to do is to build a set of eternal nature cycles that can continuously self-condense the spiritual wave. It is not enough for the spiritual wave to self-generate, and the speed of self-generation must never be less than the speed of spiritual wave consumption. And it must be completely created out of nothing, without any other consumption. After thinking everything through, Lin Yi's face was a little solemn. The true destiny is infinite, which may be countless times more difficult than he imagined. Took a deep breath. Never mind, let's condense more eternal properties first. And now there is a big trouble, which is about to begin. His eyes crossed the long distance and looked at the ancient god palace in the void forbidden land. The 5 ancient gods have completely destroyed the existence basis of the Lingbo weapons system. Countless world groups immediately fell into chaos and disaster. Weird existences can no longer be eliminated. Countless world groups have killed more and more weirdness. The speed of weird invasion is getting faster and faster, and everything is moving towards an irreversible direction. But at this time, golden flags appeared from the ancient god palace. It tore through the void one by one and descended on one world group after another. Then, these countless golden flags began to emit golden light crazily. Where the light passed, the 5 major rules of the void emerged from the void and were dyed golden by the golden light. As these golden lights took shape, a huge golden storm swept towards the world group. Wherever they passed, all strange existences were instantly torn to pieces by the golden network. Then their bodies would be ignited by the golden flames, and any trace of strange essence would also be destroyed by the golden flames. Everything turned into the most basic particles and then merged back into the cycle of the void. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Xuanhuan Luan Tianji. Chapter 1023. The latest chapter of the Wanchaiwu I Created is updated the fastest. The golden network quickly spreads around, and the networks guided by the flags are connected to each other. The 30% void area controlled by the Hope Alliance has been completely covered by the golden network. This void is shrouded in endless golden light. The golden light is spreading outside the 30% area, but the speed is much slower. Because a large number of weird existences have long been accumulated around the 30% airspace, which has been tightly surrounded here. There is a weird power everywhere here. Even if the golden network flame wants to rush over, it is very difficult. It can only expand little by little and relight the regular network entangled by the weird power. This is a pure collision of volume, without any luck. In the end, the brilliance of the golden flame covered 40% of the void area. At this point, the weird power has been raised to a certain extreme. The speed of the spread of the golden flame has gradually decreased until it is as slow as a turtle. An extremely grand voice sounded in the minds of all life forms in the void. From now on, all your strength will be blessed by the power of the ancient gods. With the power of the ancient gods, you will be able to eliminate the essence of weirdness. Now, in the name of the creator of the void, the great ancient god, I order you to go to the border of the golden flame and begin to recover and eliminate all the voids occupied by weirdness. Those who disobey will not be protected by the power of the ancient gods. The cold words and the suppression of the general trend left everyone with no choice. Just like they could tolerate Lin Yi's various exaggerated demands because of the spiritual wave weapons before, they will now tolerate the ancient gods giving orders because of the blessing of the power of the ancient gods. Everything is just for survival. Only by surviving can you have everything in this world, and the dead will have nothing. The leaders of various forces have lived longer than anyone else, and naturally understand these truths better than anyone else. Only when the void returns to its normal state will they have other choices. A full-scale expedition began. The Hope Alliance commanded the army composed of world groups one after another and began to formulate a plan to recapture it. At the border where the power of the ancient gods is, a large number of troops have gathered here. A new war is about to begin, and I don't know how many people will die on the battlefield. As the power of the ancient gods bless the void, the garrisons of each force are completely empty. Almost all the outsiders have gone to the battlefield. In the Void City, Lin Yi looked at his bounty hunters. Everyone, get ready. I'm going to a brand new place. Brandy and others looked at Lin Yi in surprise. Manager, are we leaving here? Lin Yi nodded calmly. Yes, the situation is not good now. There are many dangerous beings who have set their sights on the Wanchaiwu. I am fearless, but you are not. So temporarily go to a safe place to avoid these dangerous beings. He took a deep breath, and a trace of solemnity appeared in his eyes. He naturally saw what happened in the entire void. The ancient gods have officially begun to intervene in the affairs of the void. Just one or two means solved all his advantages and regained control of the void. This method of turning the hand to make clouds and rain to turn the hand over made him feel amazed. But at the same time, it also made him a little wary of the power of the ancient gods. This ancient existence created the void, entered the spiritual level, and witnessed countless events. No matter how careful you are, it is not too much. You must not really despise them just because you have mastered the true destiny. That would be courting death. At this time, a new bartender appeared in the Wanchaiwu, the mysterious number 4. But now he is no longer called number 4. Lin Yi gave him a new name, Champagne. He is the strongest person in the Wanchaiwu except Lin Yi. Since entering the Wanchaiwu, Champagne has been very low-key, communicating with everyone on an equal footing, and never showing his special power. Hearing that Lin Yi was leaving, he knew in his heart that Lin Yi was going to temporarily avoid the edge of the ancient gods. After all, he was very clear about the power of the ancient gods, and it was definitely not a gap that could be made up in a short time. The void is the opponent's home court. No matter how you arrange it here, you will always be at a disadvantage. In the Wanchaiwu, the moving thatched house flashed with a strange light, and then enveloped the entire Wanchaiwu. The next moment, it disappeared directly from the void city. When the Wanchaiwu appeared again, it had come to a dark world. There was a strong strange atmosphere outside, and there was an empty plain around. Lin Yi moved the Wanchaiwu into the strange place. The members of the Wanchaiwu looked at the scenery outside through the French windows, and they all showed surprise. At this time, a hazy mist rose in the Wanchaiwu, covering its existence. The thick mist was filled with strange power, which was the power of moving black stone slabs. It can naturally deflect the attention of any existence and is not noticed by any life. In this strange place, this power is magnified thousands of times. In addition, when it was in the void, the Wanchaiwu also swallowed up countless strange existences. The quality of all the strange items has been extremely improved, reaching the highest level, and it is incredibly powerful. Lin Yi looked at them with a trace of calmness in his eyes. From now on, the Wanchaiwu will be based in the strange place. All our communication with the outside world will be carried out through the wish shrine and the arbitrary door. But there will not be as many tasks as before. At this time, Lin Yi can be said to be the richest man in the world, with endless resources. He no longer needs to trade with the wish shrine to exchange for resources. He completely handed over the trading of the wish shrine to the bounty hunters of the Wanchaiwu, who can obtain resources by completing various tasks. Brandy looked at the world outside the window, with a trace of slight surprise in his eyes. Manager, we moved here, and there will be no passers-by in the future. Now the void has a master, and they are always targeting the Wanchaiwu. Before finding a way to completely solve them, we must temporarily avoid the edge. Let's live a peaceful life first. Everyone has been tired for a long time recently. It's time to take a break. Hearing Lin Yi's words, everyone nodded slightly. In the ancient forbidden land in the center of the void, in the ancient temple, the 5 ancient gods frowned slightly. I only heard the ancient god whispered, "This guy hides so fast. We just broke his spiritual wave weapon system and established our power system, and he chose to hide immediately. This guy is too alert." The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 1024. The latest chapter of the Wanchaiwu I Created is updated the fastest. There is also a problem with the mind imprint in our hands, and it is in an unstable state. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow Diamond Suit. Once we cast a spell and want to track Lin Yi through him, this thought will immediately collapse. At this time, they have merged all the mind imprints they can collect together into a clear imprint. Originally, they wanted to use this imprint to track the source of Lin Yi's spiritual wave. But they didn't expect Lin Yi to be so decisive. Once the spiritual wave system was destroyed, he immediately chose to destroy all the mind imprints. Even with their power blocking, this imprint has become unstable and may collapse at any time. At this time, Gu Shenkong said slowly, "It is impossible to trace the origin. But maybe we can use this mark to create a life form. Create a calamity for Lin Yi, a calamity specifically for him. With this thought mark as the root of the soul, they will definitely meet one day. And only one person can survive. This is a battle for the main body of life. Hearing Gu Shenkong's words, all the ancient gods understood in their hearts and showed a faint sneer on their faces. They have plenty of time to wait. As long as Lin Yi shows a flaw, they will pounce on him without hesitation. As they made a decision, they immediately began to implement it. A strange coin appeared in the hands of these ancient gods. Miracle coins, the first 9 are all unique coin series. This one is for resurrection of the dead. I have never used it. Even if we can be resurrected, I don't want to use it on this person. This coin is too precious. Once it is used, it is not so easy to get it back again. Looking at Fan's reluctant expression, Ah said calmly, the old one will not go away until the new one comes, and as long as it appears again, we will know it at the first time. It's about the ultimate secret of the soul, we still have to take this loss. Fan nodded, reluctantly tapping the black miracle coin in his hand. There are 1001 series of miracle coins, of which the first 9 are unique coins. Each series has only one, and these 10 coins are not made by them. But after the void was established, something inexplicably appeared in the void. All other miracle coins were made by them imitating these 10 coins. Although the other miracle coins have their own functions, a considerable number of them are prepared for their return to the void. They represent historical events one by one, all of which are to correct the deviations produced in the development of the void, and the flow of the void is reversed to the present. Let the void give birth to the right eternal existence at the right time, and light the light of their return. Now the effect of the imitation miracle coins has been used up, and the only miracle coins that are really useful to them are the first 9. This dead resurrection is the most important one among them. Its effect is so powerful that it can even be said to bring the soul back to life. Originally, it was a life-saving coin left by the ancient gods, but now they plan to use this coin for the secret of Lin Yi's power. At this time, Fan raised his hand and gently touched the brand in front of him, and the power of the 5 rules of the void surged. The rules of the soul quickly entangled the brand. Then something incredible happened. Under the power of the soul rules, the brand began to permeate the breath of the soul. At the same time, a trace of fundamental spirituality diffused from the soul and entangled with this trace of imprint. The fundamental spirituality and the imprint combined, and some of the most essential information in them slowly merged into the fundamental spirituality. This trace of imprint slowly disappeared, and a complete soul appeared in front of them. It's just that this piece of soul is very dead, and there is no real fluctuation of life at all. It's like a soul built with building blocks. Even if the appearance and the inside are exactly the same, it is still just a building block, not life. But at this moment, Fan gently clicked the miracle coin in front of him, the resurrection of the dead. An unimaginable power appeared. It was not the power of the ancient gods. It was an extremely mysterious power that could not be described in words. It was even more mysterious than the spiritual power of the 3rd layer. The next moment, the world changed suddenly. A mysterious light enveloped this dead soul. This dead soul seemed to be enlightened under this mysterious light and glowed with agility. This is agility that only a real soul can have. Even the trace of imprint that Lin Yi might collapse at any time was completely integrated into the fundamental spirituality. An aura exactly the same as Lin Yi's permeated, and the soul was completely awakened. At the same time, 4 rules permeated and instantly enveloped this soul. A perfect body appeared at a speed visible to the naked eye, and his face was exactly the same as Lin Yi's. His body had the most perfect talent in the world, and his soul also had a perfect soul talent, naturally sharing all the rules in the void. He could practice any method to the top at the fastest speed. This was a body with unprecedented talent, and at this time he slowly opened his eyes. His eyes were blank, and the ancient god Fan slowly stretched out his right hand, and a drop of golden blood spread out from his fingers. The blood fell into the heart of this body, and countless information filled the soul of this body. At the same time, his blood was also rapidly affected by the blood of the ancient god. The 5 innate principles around him were naturally friendly to this body, as if he was the son of the void of heaven and earth, and was protected by the void. Then the ancient god waved his hand lightly, and a void enveloped this body. He disappeared here and fell into an unknown world. Several ancient gods looked at each other, and heard a voice saying, "Soon he will step into eternity, and then he will become Lin Yi's eternal enemy. At some point in the future, we can use him to find Lin Yi." They knew that Lin Yi had disappeared in the Void City and completely disappeared from the Void. Even if they passed the authority of the Void, they could not find his trace. In a vast world, Lin Yi had a blank look in his eyes and slowly dissipated. "I am Lin Yi." He slowly got up from the ground, looking at his naked self, his eyes gradually gleaming with wisdom. The energy around him seemed to be attracted and quickly rushed towards him. Countless energies were running in her body, and she quickly cultivated to the level of human immortal. In his mind, there was a perfect cultivation method of the immortal system, and he completed the human immortal in just a breath. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 1025. His aura continued to break through upwards. Ghost Immortal Path, Earth Immortal Path, and directly reached the first level of Heavenly Immortal Path. The violent power surged in his body, and a chaotic immortal light diffused from his body. This brilliance was so brilliant that it illuminated dozens of kilometers, and the creatures around him felt trembling. The next moment, Lin Yi had turned into a stream of light and flew away. Soon he came to the sky above a huge city, where there were strong auras one after another. Lin Yi showed a hint of joy in his eyes. "There is a city, so let's live here for a while." He slowly raised his head and looked at the sky. He had a feeling in the dark. There was an invisible danger hanging above his head, and it was an existence that was connected to him. Who is it? At this time, in the strange place of Wanchaiwu, Lin Yi's eyes narrowed slightly. He felt an inexplicable feeling, as if something was connected to him in the dark. He frowned slightly, raised his hand, and a crystal bagua plate appeared in front of him. He was about to use the Tianji technique to trace the source of danger, but the next moment he felt the danger. He stopped instantly when he was about to cast the spell. Is this a feeling of danger? The only things that can bring danger to me in the void now are the ancient gods and the existence of those old antiques. Could it be that they have targeted me in some way? Lin Yi's eyes showed a trace of hesitation. He always felt that something was happening. Be more careful. A cold light flashed in his eyes, and he slowly fell into deep thought. In the Wanchi house, everyone was on track. Those who cleaned cleaned, those who ate, and those who read. Everyone was in a mood of making the best of it. Several void months passed in the blink of an eye. The void has changed a lot. Since the ancient gods destroyed the foundation of the Lingbo weapon system, the Wanchi house also disappeared. The power of the ancient gods has once again become the master of this world. Countless forces must rely on the power of the ancient gods to survive, and all those who openly resist will be eliminated by the invasion of the weird. The ancient gods don't even need to do it themselves, they just need to borrow a knife to kill. With the blessing of the power of the ancient gods, the strong men in the void also began to counterattack the world groups occupied by the weird forces. One after another, the world groups were rescued by the conquest of countless creatures in the void. But when this conquest rescued about 50% of the void, everything could no longer go on. Because the boundary of the void occupied by the weird and the boundary of the Hope Alliance have undergone huge changes. In the area occupied by the weird, a terrifying barrier composed of huge tumors appeared. This huge barrier even completely split the life void, and even the rules seemed to be cut off. The army of the Hope Alliance formed one huge line of defense after another, and the golden light was the main force of this line of defense. A huge golden barrier and the huge tumor barrier on the opposite side complement each other, thousands of kilometers apart. Both barriers extend infinitely upward and downward, and the area between them is like a bottomless abyss that will never end. And strange beings keep coming out of the tumor, and even grow out, attacking the location of the golden barrier. Behind the golden barrier is the army of the Hope Alliance. They keep destroying the strange beings rushing over, and the two are completely caught in a war of attrition. The Hope Alliance builds a huge cylindrical area with the most important forbidden area in the void as the center. This area is the sphere of influence of the Hope Alliance. Outside the area, it is completely under the influence of strange forces. However, there are also scattered areas covered by golden light, extending to the direction of the desert void. The area ruled by the Hope Alliance is not completely closed by strange forces, and there are still ways to go to the desert void. In the past few months, some mysterious beings have quietly left the scope of the life void and entered the desert void. Some people have found that the weirdness does not seem to appear there. It seems that it is because the place is too violent. Once the strange power approaches, it will be torn to pieces by the violent void. Beings that fail to reach a certain level cannot stay in that area at all, even if they are strange beings, they will have the same fate. In the desert void, only the strong can exist, and no one else is an exception. Among this group of people, there is a figure that exudes eternal glory. It is the chairman of the Void Fate Committee. At this time, he looks solemn, holding a black gem in his hand, and the gem is like a galaxy in the universe. There is a huge city inside, which is the Void City. The chairman of the Void Fate Committee received his message when Lin Yi left. Knowing that the ancient gods are powerful, they will eventually completely unify the entire void, and then the minds of all the strong will be exposed to their sight. He didn't want his life and death to be controlled by others, so he directly chose to lead the members of the Void Fate Committee to leave the life void. Although he is not the opponent of the ancient gods, it is not so easy for the ancient gods to find him. A wonderful spiritual power permeated his body, isolating all information. Like a ghost, he spent several void months shuttling through the void. Through the only remaining area connected to the desert void, he arrived at the border between the life void and the desert void. After arriving here, all his strength was directly converged, and the whole person became more ethereal, and stepped into the desert void area. The moment he stepped into here, there was an endless space-time storm blowing towards him. However, this power had no effect on him, and it blew directly over him, just like blowing in the air. Looking around, the chairman of the Void Fate Committee nodded slightly. This is a good place. Thinking of this, he continued to move forward and quickly went deep into the remote desert void. Soon he came to a relatively calm place, where the void storm was much weaker. The orb in his hand floated gently in this area, and then he flashed into it. In the central palace of the Void City, the Lord of the Fairy Palace and the Soul Master were waiting here quietly. At this time, the figure of the President appeared on the high platform. "Have we arrived yet, President?" The Master of the Immortal Palace looked at the President. He nodded. "We have arrived. We can settle down for the time being. You also need to speed up, the void has changed a lot now. It is difficult for Kingpin to control his life and death with his previous cultivation and strength. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 1026. The latest chapter of the Wanchai I Created is updated the fastest. If you can't step into eternity and touch the second level of spiritual power, you will only be pure cannon fodder. If I am alone, I can only guarantee our safety temporarily. Next, I will rely on this Wanja Pearl to absorb the power of the desert void, slowly develop, and wait for changes in the outside world. The Lord of the Immortal Palace and the Soul Master nodded slightly. I understand, we have some ideas in our hearts on the road to eternity, but we still need time. The President nodded slightly. In troubled times, I just hope that things will not change again, otherwise no one knows what it will turn out to be. However, the President also knew that this was just wishful thinking. He could feel that there seemed to be some huge changes in the dark, which were slowly emerging. In a blink of an eye, several void years passed, and the entire void seemed to have fallen into a kind of calm. Although the border war has never stopped, large-scale destruction of the void world has no longer occurred. And the masses of each world have begun to derive new life. Even the destroyed world was quickly repaired, and then the seeds of life were sown. The worlds in the world group have basically different time dimensions. The void year may have only passed a few years, but some of those world groups have passed decades or even hundreds of years. Life seems to have become diversified at this moment. However, the life void occupied by the weird is also undergoing weird changes. And this change is imperceptible to ordinary people, only the existence of the ancient god level can be aware of it. In the huge forbidden area, the eyes of the ancient gods penetrated time and space and fell into the weird area. Now the 5 innate rules there have completely collapsed, leaving only pure weirdness. A group of weird tumors that are so huge that they are unimaginable appeared in the weird area. There are densely packed weird existences on the tumor, and in the center of the tumor, it seems that there is an endless terrifying thing being bred. Gu Shen's eyes are very solemn. The weird invasion is about to enter the second stage. The weird demon is about to be born. Do you want to take action? He looked at the others, and everyone's eyes showed a trace of solemnity. Ancient God Fan shook his head slightly. Let it out, the void is just our creation for seeking the truth. Even if it is destroyed, it is just back to the beginning. Fight a battle, test the strength of the strange demon and get familiar with it in advance. It is also good. And those things are coming soon. Before they come, we have to clean up the void thoroughly, and we can't leave all the benefits to them. Ancient God Zhen nodded slowly. Our goal is just to be strong. That's right. The mental mark of the void strongman is almost calculated. The accumulation of countless years will be a feast for gluttony. Zhen, Fan, Kong, Hun, the faces of the 5 ancient gods all showed a cold smile. As long as they can make further progress, any sacrifice is insignificant to them. The reason why the form of the void is stabilized is just to facilitate their eating. Then let's start now. The night is long and dreams are many, we can't leave them any food. Okay. Good. The 5 figures of the ancient gods disappeared in an instant, as if they had never existed. Then, strange things began to happen in the life void. In a tiny world, there lived a race called the Duba tribe. They were intelligent creatures with blue skin and 6 arms. At this time, the Duba tribe had no idea of the war in the outside world. Because they were a race that had not yet produced an outsider-level strongman. They had no idea of the cruelty of the void, and this world was everything within their sight. This was a world that combined high technology and supernatural power. While developing technology, they also developed their own supernatural power. The 2 powers were perfectly combined by them, and they developed a supernatural technological civilization beyond imagination. They had even completed nuclear fusion and the manufacture of infinite energy systems. They even conquered every corner of the stars and planets in their world. The race had a long lifespan, reaching a minimum lifespan of 1,000 years, and was a truly immortal race. At this time, the Duba tribe was holding a national celebration event, and the Duba Empire was founded 100,000 years ago. Countless people were cheering, enjoying delicious food and wine, and everything that could make them happy. But at this moment, the king of the Duba tribe suddenly froze. Then, under the attention of countless people, he turned into ashes in an instant, leaving nothing behind. This scene shocked the entire Duba tribe. And this was just the beginning. The next moment, the entire Duba tribe seemed to be stared at by the god of death. Countless people stopped and turned into ashes. Fear spread to the entire Duba tribe in an instant. Whether they were superiors or inferiors, they all looked terrified and fled everywhere. I didn't know where I was going to escape. I instinctively wanted to leave. But unfortunately, some of them were still flying in the sky, and they froze in an instant, and then fell to the ground under the action of inertia. And their bodies collapsed and turned into ashes in an instant before they fell to the ground. The entire world where the Duba tribe lived, all life, turned into ashes in a few breaths. All the life with soul in this world has all gone to death. And this is just the beginning. In the entire void, one world after another began to show such changes. Death is like a tornado, spreading wildly around. No matter what kind of civilization, what kind of world, what kind of strong man, they will die silently. And the void is still shrouded in golden light, slowly moving, and the terrifying scene is rapidly spreading to the void controlled by the Hope Alliance. In a short period of time, more than hundreds of world groups have gone to destruction. They don't know where the destruction comes from, everything is so abrupt. In the Hope Alliance Executive Hall, a huge independent fortress quietly floats in a void. There is a huge palace in the center of the fortress, and in the palace is a huge conference hall that can accommodate hundreds of billions of people. This palace is always full, and the projections of countless strong men will remain here. At every moment, they participate in various discussions and plans formulated by the Hope Alliance. The goal is to reclaim one world group after another, while designing various plans and directions. Constantly trying to break the current weird and empty deadlock. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 1027. But then a terrible thing happened. Some members disappeared without a trace. Their projections instantly disappeared from the scene, and this disappearance continued to accelerate. This phenomenon immediately attracted the attention of countless people in the Hope Alliance. What's going on? What happened? Their aura has completely disappeared. A noise quickly sounded in the palace, and countless people looked confused and didn't know what was going on. But everyone knew that an inexplicable crisis had begun, and it was rapidly sweeping the entire void. The projection disappeared quickly, and some people remained confused before they died. Everyone felt a boundless fear hanging over their hearts. The president of the Void Destiny Committee, the Lord of the Immortal Palace, and the projection of the Soul Lord are still here. Although they had entered the desert void, they did not recall their projections. They are monitoring the next actions of the ancient gods through the Alliance of Hope. But what they saw now made their hearts feel cold. They already figured out what was going on. The ancient god is slaughtering the entire void and devouring the hearts of all living things. The three of them looked at each other, silently recalled their projections, and left the Alliance of Hope. They knew that the void was over and there would never be any chance again. At the same time, 1/3 of the world group in the void has completely and permanently lost all life forms. It was as if they had never existed, everything became dead, and only plants and nature still existed quietly in those worlds. Even at the junction of the void and the weird, the soldiers guarding there were constantly turning into ashes and disappearing. There are more than trillions of lives that have survived in the entire void, but at this time, they are being wiped out as if they have never existed. In a strange place, Lin Yi heard prayers through the wish shrine, which came from one life after another. These life forms disappeared within a few seconds after issuing their prayers. This caught Lin Yi's attention. What happened? He directly pushed open the door of the Everything House, and the power of the Any door was activated. The gate was connected to the Void City. When he stepped out of the gate, the streets of Void City have changed drastically. Countless people have hurried expressions on their faces, as if they are in a hurry. Lin Yi's eyes showed a trace of solemnity when he saw this scene. This doesn't look good. Did something happen? It was Lin Yi's third clone who came here at this time. There was a flash of vision in the space behind him, and he had already left here in the next moment. When he appeared again, he had arrived at the central palace, and the three presidents were here. At this time, the faces of the three of them were very solemn, and they seemed to be thinking about something. Seeing Lin Yi suddenly appear, the president's face was calm. "Mr. Lin, you are here. What happened? It seems like things are not going well from the looks of you." The president nodded, then raised his hand, and an illusory scene appeared in front of them. This is the Parliament Palace of the Alliance of Hope. Just now, a large number of members disappeared for no reason. It seems that their souls were devoured, leading to their death. We contacted several world groups that we had good relations with before, but they have completely lost contact. I judge that the ancient gods are massacring the entire void. The souls of all living beings have been devoured, and there is no hope left. Hearing this, Lin Yi frowned slightly. He received various distress signals from the Wish Shrine in the House of All Things. But before he could react, all the cries for help stopped abruptly. Only then did he know what happened. These ancient gods are really crazy. The president looked solemn. I thought that the biggest enemies of life in the void were the strange beings. I didn't expect it to be the creators who created the void. It's such a huge irony. When Lin Yi heard this, he said calmly, "The creator always thinks that he is the master of the created. This is the arrogance that no intelligent life can get rid of. But now that things have reached this point, there is no room for recovery. Even I can't stop them from hunting down all life in the void. If I'm not wrong, the ancient god may have found the spiritual coordinates of all living beings through the authority of the void and the blessing of the ancient god's power on all living beings." The president nodded slightly. "That's what I assumed. So after I returned to the Void City, I have been covering the entire Void City with my spiritual power. For all members of the Void Destiny Council, the message of the heart is obscured. But I'm not sure whether it will be effective. After all, when the ancient gods went to the spiritual level, they learned so much unknown knowledge in an unknown amount of time. Perhaps my actions were pointless." Lin Yi looked at the president. At this time, the president's expression was slightly gloomy and his face was very melancholy. It was obvious that this incident had also brought huge pressure to him. Lin Yi said calmly, "Let me give it a try. I want to see how powerful the ancient gods can be." A majestic light of true life and perseverance filled the air from Lin Yi's body. The huge brilliance spread to the entire Void City, vast and endless. The next moment, all the lives in the entire Void City felt that their hearts, spirits, and even souls were shrouded in a layer of mysterious light. At this moment, all the forces that harmed their hearts, spirits, thoughts, and souls disappeared without a trace in an instant. As if they had never existed. And at this moment, in the infinite spiritual level, 5 huge storms slowly paused. The communication of the mind echoed between them. What is this? Some of the minds have eliminated our lock. Their coordinates disappeared from our perception. It seems that an unknown existence has taken action. Forget it, anyway, there are not many. Eat all the suitable ones first. Okay. The storm at the spiritual level continued to spread around, and tentacles, using the power of the mind, extended to one coordinate after another. One after another, the hearts that emitted different faint brilliance in this dark world were caught by these tentacles and then swallowed into the storm. In the center of the storm was an extremely huge spiritual light. All weak hearts would be crushed by the huge heart as soon as they approached it, turning into extremely tiny particles and merging into the huge heart. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 1028. The soul in the storm continued to expand as time passed, and the light became more and more blazing. An inexplicable figure seemed to appear in it. This figure exuded a great aura that could not be described in words. just standing there seemed to represent all living beings. However, at this time, they exuded infinite spiritual light, triggered a violent spiritual storm, and captured one soul after another. Like a hungry glutton, devouring all the souls they saw. In the Void City, Lin Yi's eyes flashed a ray of light. When using the True Destiny Perseverance, he was sure that his power seemed to sweep away something. Almost everyone in the Void City had something shrouded their souls. This also confirmed his judgment that the ancient gods did mark almost everyone. Even the Lord of the Asgard and the Soul Master did not escape. Only the President got rid of the Lock of the Soul, which to a certain extent had an important relationship with his mastery of eternity and spiritual embodiment. In addition, he was reminded by himself last time that he was always hiding himself. At this time, everyone's eyes looked towards the direction of the life void. They all had their own means, and they could clearly see the area where the entire life void was covered by the power of the ancient god, and countless life candles were extinguishing. At this time, more than half of the lives had disappeared in the void. The speed of this slaughter was beyond imagination, and Lin Yi's thoughts were deeply shaken. It seems that the spiritual level also has the characteristics of tearing time and space and reaching another place in a short time. Otherwise, the ancient god would not be able to devour the souls of one life after another so quickly. The spiritual level is more dangerous than we think. Once the coordinates are exposed, maybe the next moment is death. Look at the speed of life extinction. There are tens of billions of lives disappearing every second. This means that the ancient god can attack the minds of tens of billions of lives at the same time. At this time, a picture flashed involuntarily in everyone's mind. The ancient god stood on a wonderful level and extended countless powers. These powers reached tens of billions of different coordinates in an instant. Then tens of billions of hearts were caught, pulling the area where the ancient god was, and then these hearts were swallowed by the ancient god. Every moment, hundreds of billions of spirits are devoured. Unless the entire void is devoured, it will never end. This scene made the four people in the palace look extremely solemn and feel a ruthless coldness. The ancient god is more terrifying and more ruthless than they imagined. In their eyes, trillions of lives are like ants, killed directly without any hesitation. Lin Yi's eyes showed a hint of coldness. Although he knew that powerful creatures regarded weak creatures as ants, he never thought that it would be so cruel. Ancient god, you really deserve to be killed. Hearing Lin Yi's words, everyone was silent. Although they thought so in their hearts, they had no way to do it now. In a blink of an eye, a void day passed, and the entire life void became a pure dead silence. All traces of life have disappeared, and the strong men and races accumulated over countless years have been lost in this round of massacre. Only a lonely, clean world is left, floating quietly in the void. At the same time, a golden flame appeared from the void, sweeping in all directions like a wave. The golden flame spread rapidly along the rules of the void, repairing all damage. The boundary between the original life void and the weirdness was also undergoing a huge change at this time. The black weird flesh wall was burned by the golden flame, and the rules penetrated into the area occupied by the weirdness. The originally dead void was rapidly revived, and the weirdness was being eliminated at an alarming speed. The weird tumor, which was like a barrier, began to slowly retreat under the burning of the golden flame, even though it released countless weird powers. The essence of the weirdness was burned, and the area of the life void was restored again. The area controlled by the weirdness was quickly recaptured. At this time, the weird area was full of countless weird whirlpools. The vast weird power and weird existence gushed out from it, supporting the tumor wall in an endless stream, but the golden flame came fiercely this time. Even if the strange power continued to surge with all its strength, it seemed that it could not be resisted. At this time, in the area occupied by the strange, due to his extremely huge tumor. On the surface of the tumor, countless tiny strange existences appeared every moment. They rushed towards the huge tumor wall like fearless artillery fire, and after passing through the wall, they rushed towards the golden flames. They fell one after another, densely packed, as if they wanted to extinguish the golden flames with their own lives. But the result was that they were burned to ashes by the ruthless flames, and the strange essence would also be burned completely. If it was the original void life, although they also had the ability to achieve this effect, they could not eliminate the strange essence. With the death of the strange essence will quickly fill the void, increasing the erosion of the void by the strange. The final result is that the strange has the upper hand. Originally, this tactic was tried and tested, but now it is not the case at all. The golden flames eliminate the strange essence, making the strange tactics completely ineffective. The more essences are burned, the weaker the power of the strange will be. The void expanded rapidly in all directions, and in a short time, 1% of the life void was taken back. This was just the result of one void day. As time passed, a golden life void was expanding rapidly. After dozens of void days, more than 70% of the life void had been completely taken back. There were less than 30% of the remaining area of the weirdness. However, at this time, the area occupied by the weirdness also began to change dramatically, and the huge tumor made a weird thumping sound. The sound was like a heartbeat, roaring incessantly, shaking the entire void. However, no matter how loud the sound was, no one in the life void would care, because it had become a desert of life. In the desert void, the eyes of Lin Yi, the lord of the fairy palace, the president, the soul master, and others, across countless distances, looked at the area occupied by the weirdness. There was endless weirdness there, and a huge tumor was undergoing weird changes. The huge arm tore the weird tumor, and a terrifying figure emerged from it again. Countless eyes emitting black light flickered on the mysterious figure in the tumor. Just like a chick breaking out of its shell, the terrifying and strange demon tore the tumor that was wrapping it apart and slowly stood up from it. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Xuanhuan Luan Tianji. Chapter 1029. It was a huge black humanoid being. His body was 100 billion kilometers tall, and his body was covered with strange tentacles. The countless tentacles were different, some were like octopus tentacles, some were tentacles made up of countless limbs and organs, and some were tentacles made up of human heads. Almost any race in the world can be found on this body. Hundreds of huge eyes appeared on this huge monster, and looking at these eyes carefully. It seemed to be made up of different organs and bodies, and each eye was different in shape. Some seemed to be a protruding sphere, some were like normal eyes with eyelids, and some were pure colored weird eyes. This huge humanoid monster had no specific face, and his face was a completely flat mirror. But if you look closely, you will find that this mirror is also made up of countless small and strange beings, which are fused together. But because their bodies are so small, the structure after being formed is very smooth. A strange essence that cannot be described in words permeated from its body. This strange essence seemed to be changing all reality. Starting from the tens of millions of kilometers around it, everything was changing. Black and blazing, something like fire was flickering wildly. Countless strange faces appeared in this strange area. These faces seemed to be the faces of life, and these lives seemed to have all appeared in the void. This extremely huge existence moved slowly, and one step forward was billions of kilometers. Even trillions of kilometers, time and space seemed to have no meaning in front of it. The next moment, this behemoth had arrived in front of the huge golden flame barrier. He raised his arms and blasted the golden wall in front of him like a violent warrior. The violent and unimaginable force madly hit everything in front of him, and no force could stop it. The black and golden flames collided rapidly, and the two forces seemed to be of equal nature and were rapidly extinguishing each other. 5 tall figures stood up from the ancient god palace and looked towards the border. The 5 ancient gods looked solemn, and only heard the low voice of Gu Shenzhen, the strange demon has appeared. Take action, destroy this real strange, and temporarily repel the strange invasion. The 5 ancient gods turned into 5 golden lights, and their power merged into one. A huge golden shadow walked out of the void, crossed an infinite distance in one step, and came in front of the huge strange demon. The golden shadow was extremely sacred, like a god, and the golden flames were burning around him. It looked glorious and majestic, and its size was not inferior to the strange demon. He also raised his fist and smashed it towards the strange demon, pointing directly at the opponent's head. Boom! The golden light exuded eternal light, and the majestic spiritual power and eternal light merged into one, indestructible. Boom! The golden arm seemed to tear everything apart, and in an instant, his fist had come to the head of the strange demon. The huge force hit the face of the strange demon heavily. The smooth face sunk directly, but the counter-attack of the weird demon also arrived at the same time. His claws grabbed the chest of the huge golden figure. Countless weird tentacles extended from his body and enveloped the golden giant. However, the weird tentacles would collapse instantly when they touched the golden flames, and could not touch the real body at all. 2 huge figures, their attacks fell on each other. Black flesh and blood were splashing, and the golden light was collapsing. The war between the 2 void beasts attracted the attention of ancient eyes in the desert void. The splashing golden light and black flesh and blood were not just flesh and blood and light in their eyes. Those black flesh and blood were all weird essences, and the golden light was also composed of the majestic mind and eternal nature. The scattered golden light fell into the void and directly evolved into all kinds of incredible phenomena. For example, one of the golden lights was floating in the void. The space, energy, matter, and soul in the surrounding void were all attracted and naturally gathered together, eventually turning into a golden, egg-like thing. The next moment, the golden egg shattered, and a figure hundreds of meters tall emerged from it. He was filled with the aura of an innate god, and his every move was in harmony with the void. As soon as he was born, he had a terrifying power 100 times the level of the heavenly immortal Deo. After the black flesh and blood fell, the weird nature also changed instantly. All the regular substances around were affected by this black flesh and blood and were swallowed and absorbed by it. Then a weird tumor was born, and an ugly monster drilled out of it, with countless weird faces on his body. Then, the monster rushed towards the innate god 100 meters high, and the two fought again. They all have innate hatred in their hearts, and they must kill each other before they will stop. The war of the huge figures scattered countless fragments in the void. These fragments were also rapidly evolving into one figure after another, and they began to fight with each other. In a short time, tens of millions of creatures and wars appeared around the 2 huge figures. This mythical scene shocked everyone, and whispers continued to sound in the desert void. Is this the power that the ancient gods have obtained at the spiritual level? It is dozens of times stronger than they were in the distant past. The one who fights him is the real weirdness. Stay away from the life void, stay away from the ancient gods and weirdness. They have reached a new life form. Have you reached the 3rd level? The void still has some wisdom. One after another, thoughts full of wisdom flashed, some of them showed solemnity in their eyes, and some showed indifference. For the ancient gods and the mysterious weird demons, their hearts were already filled with uneasiness and a trace of awe. In the Void City, both the president and Lin Yi fell into silence. This war exceeded their imagination. The power of the ancient gods was so powerful that it could not be surpassed. This was obviously their achievement after devouring the entire void life. As the battle progressed, the strange demon seemed to be at a disadvantage. More and more flesh and blood were broken, and his body was getting smaller and smaller. The battle between the countless golden and black figures around him also became tilted. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 1030. Those golden innate gods, their breaths are connected together, and they are constantly dividing and destroying the black flesh monsters one after another. If this continues, a bizarre failure will be just a matter of time, unless a miracle occurs. But it is a pity that miracles never appear, after several void days of war. The huge strange demon slowly fell, and its body shattered into countless pieces. Golden flames erupted from the entire void of life, sweeping over the fallen strange demon like a sea of fire. Everything is being burned to golden ashes, and no force can survive. All the weirdness is being cleared away at an alarming speed, and the scope of the void of life is expanding again. The place invaded by strangeness is rapidly disappearing and retreating. After a few more void days, the entire void of life was completely enveloped in golden light. Even the radiance of the golden void has crossed the boundary of the void of life and spread towards the desert void. Wherever the golden flame passed, the chaotic desert and void quickly began to calm down. The originally chaotic time and space, matter, energy, and soul all turned into orderly things in a short period of time. They gathered together under the power of rules and became one world after another, with only a few straying outside, forming a weak storm between worlds. All beings in the desert void are quickly moving away from this area. The entire void of life expanded by January 5th, becoming even larger and more stable. This scene shocked all the surviving ancient beings. Immediately afterwards, they began to unite secretly and formed a mysterious organization, the Ancient Parliament. In the Void City, the president also received an invitation from the Ancient Parliament. A series of events happened in just 100 void days. The past void civilization has been completely buried, and nothing remains. The area of the void of life has expanded again, and the power of the ancient gods seems to have increased to a level beyond understanding. Ancient existences also surfaced one after another, and even established an alliance to help each other, in order to fight against the ancient gods who were born again. The president looked at the invitation that appeared in his hand, and his eyes fell on Lin Yi. "Mr. Lin, do you want to go together?" At this time, Lin Yi looked in the direction of the void of life, with a trace of solemnity in his eyes. "Let's take a trip. I also want to see what existence is hidden in the desert void." The president nodded slightly. "I only know that they are all great life forms that were born before the existence of the void." At this time, a thought flashed through Lin Yi's mind. He saw the dark side gate in a strange place. There are obviously two completely different ancient civilizations there, and the rules they master are completely different from the 5 rules of the void. All of this indicates one thing. Could it be said that there was a place similar to the void before the void, and those two different civilizations were born? And those creators of civilization, the spiritual beings represented by the altar. If the void is not the first place where countless lives can exist, so how many places like this were there before this? Are the two civilizations I saw at the dark side gate all there is? Does anyone know what is going on with these ancient life forms? Maybe this meeting can let me see the truth of everything. A trace of expectation flashed in Lin Yi's eyes, and he felt that the real world might be broader than what he saw. His eyes looked towards the void of life again, where one after another strange whirlpools had been burned into nothingness by the power of golden flames. The void has been completely restored to its most complete state, even more complete than before, and any trace of strange power has completely disappeared. But the foreign land never disappeared. The strange place still exists, but its connection with the entire void has been affected and isolated by the power of the ancient gods. Lin Yi was a little surprised. The ancient god is really powerful. This time he came back and actually found a way to isolate the strange things. Lin Yi could contact Xuanhuan at any time through his power, and there was a trace of solemnity in his eyes. Xuanhuan can still come back at any time, so it's not a big problem. He took a deep breath, and there was a trace of solemnity in his eyes. Ancient God, what do they want to do? He could naturally feel that the ancient God was doing everything in a hurry, as if he was preparing for something. If they simply say that they want to increase their power and exterminate the void, it is purely a very low-level approach. The correct approach is to let the water flow slowly without affecting the operation of life in the entire void. Devouring souls quantitatively, through the accumulation of time, they will naturally become more and more powerful. Instead of swallowing up all life at once like now. It looks like they urgently need to increase their strength, so they can only kill them all. Thinking of this, his heart suddenly moved. Could it be that the enemy? They are trying to protect themselves from enemies from the spiritual level, so they kill them all. In an instant, Lin Yi felt as if he knew something, and a trace of vigilance flashed in his eyes. If there are enemies that even the ancient gods fear, you can imagine how powerful they are. Involuntarily, he thought of the dark side gate again, one of the sealed civilization ruins. Is that it? Or is it the existence that once killed me once through the image in the black spear? Thinking of this, Lin Yi's eyes showed a trace of solemnity, and he felt that he seemed to have grasped the key points of everything. In the blink of an eye, it was time for the ancient parliament to convene. In the hands of the president, the invitation card bloomed with a wonderful brilliance. The 4 people in the temple all felt the information in this brilliance, which was a coordinate. A coordinate located in the desert void, located by an inexplicable spiritual power. Several people looked at each other, and only heard the president say, let's go, and take a look. He raised his hand and waved, and a golden light similar to the ancient god enveloped the 4 people in the hall. No one resisted this power, and the next moment they tore through time and space and arrived at an inexplicable place. When they came here, they saw an extremely violent storm area. The moment it appeared, a storm that could destroy the world swept across. However, this power collapsed in an instant when it touched the brilliance emitted by the president. It was as if this area had a power that could change all effects. The storm that could tear everything apart turned into particles and fell downwards due to some unpredictable force when it entered this area.